The following conversation is between Christian presuppositionalist Darth Dawkins and atheist Matt Steele.
The atheist you've been waiting for.
Oh, the atheist I've been waiting for? What kind of atheist is that?
Yes. Well, but I've been listening for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and all of the complaints you've made about people not willing to answer straight questions or be honest about what atheism is, all of these things, I have been just as frustrated with a lot of the things that have been said as you have.
Okay.
I completely reject lacktheism.
Okay.
So by all means, ask me whatever you want.
Well,
this is
good.
atheism on trial, so consider me your defendant.
Okay. How is it that there is no God?
The justification, which would serve as the evidence in the absence of empirical evidence, is not there.
So what you're saying is that all the facts around you do not necessitate referencing God, therefore no God?
I'm saying that facts are descriptive of the universe, and they describe the universe.
Okay.
They don't reference a mind.
Okay. So how did you determine that these facts do not ultimately derive and necessitate God?
I'm a monist, a materialistic monist, and a nominalist.
Yeah, you're giving me a label for yourself. You didn't tell me how you determined that all facts do not stand in causal relations to God. How did you determine that?
Okay, so the way that I understand the universe is that the space-time continuum that we live in is part of a larger cosmos that we don't know the full extent of. All right? So since we don't know the full extent of it, we can't establish that anything can exist outside of it. And since we can't establish that anything can live outside of it or exist outside of it, then it makes more sense that some part of the universe it provides the explanation for why everything is the way it is.
Are you reasoning abductively?
It's a good question.
You said that.
I don't think I've ever had anybody ask me that.
Basically, what you're saying is that your appeal to naturalism or materialism, okay, which is your position, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So what you're saying is it makes more sense. Well, here's the problem. In order to say that a given proposition makes sense, it must conform to some independent standard. Okay? Or what you're saying is that it doesn't entail a contradiction, right? But you believe that naturalism is what is ultimate, as opposed to God being ultimate, and then there's a creation. Now, that still the fact that you believe that materialism and naturalism, which entails atheism, makes more sense, that still hasn't established how you determined that all facts exist independently of God. How did you determine that?
Because I consider facts to be descriptive of materialism, not independent of materialism.
You're repeating the same thing that you said a minute ago. How did you determine that matter and energy is all that there is, was, and could be? How'd you determine that?
There's no justification to suggest otherwise.
Okay, that's called an argumentum ad ignorantum. It's a fallacy. Okay, that's an appeal to ignorance. Do you know what the fallacy of an appeal to ignorance is?
I do. I know that fallacy.
Have you committed it?
I guess you could say, yeah. I guess I have, in the way that I've been answering your questions. Yes. The way that I have phrased it in answering your questions, I have committed that fallacy.
Okay, so we can take that off the table as a defense of atheism.
Okay? I'm sorry. I would just like to say that I have been trying to answer your questions in the spirit that you're asking them, not in the way that I would justify my position.
Okay. I want to know is, how is it that there is no God? Well, your answer is, well, I'm a naturalist. Well, you haven't established that naturalism is true. How did you determine that matter and energy, causality and laws of nature are the only things that exist? How did you determine that?
Okay.
How did you determine that matter and energy are self-existent and are eternal? How did you determine that?
I haven't determined that they are eternal. I have determined that there is.
So you
there is no justification.
So you believe that they. Well, if how shall I put this? Then, if you don't believe that they're eternal, then they must derive from something else. They would be secondary states or temporal states. So matter, energy, causality. Well, because you can't have secondary states without a primary state. That would be incoherent.
But that's why I'm a monist.
You're not understanding what I just said. Okay.
Okay.
You can't have second order. You can't have second order states without there being a primary or first order. Because then there would be nothing for the second order to derive from. Now, your position is that there is no God. Now, I want to know, how is it that matter or energy or whatever, how did you determine that that is ultimate and foundational to everything?
Experience of reality shows through the most simple reasoning, because you can't just go by the scientific method. I realize that logical positivism was, refuted a long time ago, and the way that atheism is understood now by most people is completely false. Atheism is a position that requires defending. So, in establishing the defense of my position, I have used Occam's razor to eliminate any unjustified assumptions in my position, back to the point that experience of reality itself
Occam's razor is
shows
not determinate. Occam's razor is not determinative. Okay, Occam's razor is a heuristic tool that is preferential. Is that when we have two hypotheses that have equally explanatory, how should I put this? They have equal explanatory power. Okay. Now that's a very important thing you have to keep in mind. Occam's razor is that when we have two hypotheses that have equal explanatory power, the one with the fewer assumptions is to be preferred. It doesn't mean that it's true. It's to be preferred.
I agree. Now, I agree, and that's why I arrived at this conclusion. You're right. Occam's razor is not definitive in defining your conclusion for you. That is where my position comes in. So my position is not Occam's razor. It's just a tool that I've used to arrive at the conclusion that I have, which is that everything is.
How did you conclude? I'm still waiting. How did you determine that matter and energy have always existed?
It is the only explanation.
Okay, hold on.
It's the only explanation. I'm just trying to answer the question.
I would just want to make a qualifying remark.
Oh, sure.
If you can show me one thing, just one thing, or for that matter, everything that exists independently of God, then you will have made your case. So it makes no difference to me whether you show me one thing or a multitude of things that are eternal. So how did you determine what, if anything, is eternal and that it's not God?
You were talking before about primary and secondary states, right? I consider God to be an idea, and ideas are referential in nominalism for things that exist in reality. So the idea of God existing outside of reality.
Did you need me to repeat the question that you're not answering?
Okay, I understand. I swear to you, I am not being evasive. I'm just trying to explain
I take your
why my position is so much at odds with yours, and I will do my best on my honor to
I am not
explain it
accusing
as
you. I am not accusing you of anything. Okay.
okay. Good. So help me answer the question in the way that you want.
How did you determine that anything at all is eternal and that it's not God?
Because it's reality.
That's a non-answer. That's non-informative. Reality is a term which is an abstraction. Okay? Okay, do you agree with
when
that?
I still
The term
No,
reality, the term reality is a term which is an abstraction.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. Well,
but it refers to the cosmos.
That's no. Reality is an abstraction. Refers to a conceptual set of all things that are real. Okay. Now you might happen to believe. You might happen to believe that the only real things is the cosmos. Right. But reality itself, as a term, as an abstraction, abstract concepts do not stand in causal relations. Only concrete things do. So I want to know why any one thing or multitude of things, whatever it is in fact eternal and is not derivative and necessitates God.
To understand your question, are you suggesting that causality is necessary? Is that what you're implying?
I want to know why anything is eternal and that it's not God. Is there any one thing that is eternal, self-existent, unconditionally non-dependent, that is not God?
All evidence points to it being the cosmos, yes.
Okay. Now, how did you determine that the cosmos is eternal? Do you believe that it did not begin? Or do you believe that the cosmos began to exist?
I believe that the cosmos did not begin.
Okay. Do you hold to the steady state theory or the Big Bang model of cosmology?
The Big Bang only holds to the apparent observable universe, which, when space-time is involved in, yes, within space-time.
So then, the cosmos began to exist. Okay. So if something begins to exist, okay, did the cosmos begin to exist?
No.
Okay, so then you believe in the steady state theory.
I believe there's
the steady state theory is that the universe, the cosmos, has always existed, as opposed to Big Bang cosmogony, is that the universe began to exist. If something begins to exist, then by definition, it cannot be eternal.
Right.
Do you believe that the universe began to exist?
No.
Okay. How do you know that the universe is eternal?
It's the best explanation.
Okay,
it's the most justified explanation.
Okay. Well, first of all, that is abductive reasoning, and abductive reasoning is not determinative. What used to be the best explanation for things has been overturned in numerous instances through the course and history of science and the history of science. So abductive conclusions do not necessarily follow. Now, here's the problem. Now, if you believe that materialism is true, okay, do you believe that some things stay the same while other things change within the cosmos?
That's a complex question.
No. Do you believe that there are some regularities and non-regularities? Simple question.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it
Okay.
And when you asked it, I was just thinking about an answer.
It's not a trick
Before
question.
I responded, I didn't want to speak. I know. I'm just saying I'm thinking about it before I answer because I want to think before I speak is all. Yes, I would say that some things within the cosmos, and I use the term cosmos differently than universe. Because cosmos would...
Okay. Is that regularity, is it imposed by something, or is the regularity an illusion?
I don't think we have any way to know that.
Okay. Then, therefore, you can't say that the world around you makes sense at all. Because in order for you to make sense of things, you're going to have the principle of continuity or regularity. Without presupposing the regularity of the world, okay, the uniformity of nature, which doesn't exclude change, right? Without that, you couldn't intelligibly talk about the apple on the counter or the sky being blue or the dog wagging its tail. But you want to say
absolutely.
But you want to say that materialism makes sense. Well, how does a world of materialism make sense when it's in the world around us? You cannot discern or even know whether it's in a world of actual regularity versus a world of an illusion of regularity.
Okay. And that's a fantastic question. I'm really glad that you asked that. And that's something that I've thought about a lot. And although this may sound like a dodge, it's not. Every time someone brings up something like, are you a brain in a vat? Are you dreaming? It's always speculative. But there's no justification for why that could be the case other than what I'm experiencing right now.
When you say experience, okay, are you talking about
yes,
where there are events that are causally connected?
Within the universe, yes, the observable universe.
Good. So then you believe that the uniformity of nature is real, and hence something would have to impose it and sustain it.
Descriptively, and it might be imposed upon factors of the cosmos
either the regularity
we can't observe.
Either the regularity is real because it's imposed, or the regularity is simply an illusion of spontaneous happenstance. Now, you want to say that materialism makes sense as a better explanation versus theism, where we start with the eternal mind of God. God creates the world, and the world is revelatory of God. You dismiss that as being make lesser sense than materialism. But in order for you to make sense of your materialistic world, the regularity must be real and it must be imposed. If it's not imposed, then the regularity is simply illusory. Okay? So is the regularity real or illusory? Because if it's illusory, then you can't make any rhyme or reason about anything.
Except the experience that it has in the past.
No.
And the assumption that it will be in the future.
Vicarious.
I'm not denying. Yes,
Does experience presuppose causal succession?
Yes.
Okay. Then when you invoke experience, you are presupposing and indirectly invoking the actuality of the uniformity of nature.
Yes,
when I asked you earlier,
I would agree with that.
Said, is it real or an illusion? You told me you couldn't tell. So then if you don't know if there's actually the uniformity of nature that is imposed by something and secured in perpetuity versus it's just happenstance. So in order for you to use the word experience, meaning causal succession, to be meaningful, then you have to be in a world that is not a chance world where there is no regularity. So you are claiming indirectly that you are in a world that exists without God and that there's regularity along with change. Now, is that regular? What imposes that regularity in order for it to be real?
May I answer?
I'm listening.
I don't want to interrupt you is all.
No, you're doing fine.
Okay. Causality, as far as we can tell, requires time. Time appears to be an aspect of the observable universe, but due to quantum physics, we know that the cosmos is larger than just the observable universe. And since time and causality are limited to, one event occurring after another event, that is something that occurs in time. So if the universe is not bound by time, then it's not regulated by causality.
Okay. Vicarious, is there something that imposes and secures in perpetuity the regularity of nature?
The universe, the cosmos.
No, that is not a coherent answer. Okay.
Okay.
Because all you're just simply saying is that the set of all real things is imposing. The set is an abstraction. An abstraction doesn't stand in causal relations. Okay? I want to know, is there something that is eternal that imposes the regularity and sustains it? Is there something that does that?
And to just recap the answer that I've already given to this in a way that will be more satisfying to you, when I said that my explanation as a monist, a nominalist, and an actual atheist who denies the existence of a creator, I am not saying I do not have... I'm
still waiting for an answer to my question.
Right. That was the next part of the sentence. I am not saying I don't have any presuppositions in my worldview. My premises of my position do contain presuppositions.
Vicarious, is there something that is eternal, absolute, and invariant that imposes and sustains the regularity of nature?
Yes.
What
the
is
universe or the cosmos?
That's you've already answered that before, and I gave a rebuttal to it, and you didn't give a counter rebuttal. The cosmos is an abstraction of the set of all real things. Okay, the set is a mental framework. Okay. Now,
yes.
So what you're not understanding is that all of the individual particulars that are discrete from each other at a foundational level, all of them collectively impose the regularity, okay? All of them somehow are connected to and impose the regularity in a tiny little corner of the universe somewhere?
Okay. I understand better now what you're asking.
That's not a coherent answer.
Me just saying I understand better now, and I'm just saying I can give you a better answer now that I better understand the question you're asking.
That answer is false. Because
that I better understand?
No, I'm saying to you is you can't appeal to an abstract set as standing in causal relations.
Abstracts are nominalistic, as in descriptive.
Vicarious. What is it that imposes the regularity that does exist and sustains it ongoing?
I see no reason for there to be something that does impose that.
Okay, if it's not imposed, then the uniformity of nature is an illusion of happenstance and spontaneous occurrences.
Okay, what's the justification for that being a dichotomy?
Okay, what do you mean? Well, either the uniformity of nature is real or it's not real. Okay? So let me give you an illustration, okay?
Okay.
Suppose we go on a cruise ship and we go to the casino. And I pick up the dice and I roll them and I get a 7. And I win. I pick them up again, I roll them again, I get a 7. And I keep on doing this. After I roll the dice about 15 or 20 times and keep on getting 7s, do you think that that's going to get the attention of the casino manager?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, and this is an analogy.
Okay.
He's going to begin to suspect that there's something that necessitates these consistencies without deviation, as opposed to that the rolls of the 7, each subsequent roll and consistency thereof, he's going to reject the notion that they are unconnected and unrelated, that there's something that is imposing the regularity. Okay?
Absolutely.
Now,
yes.
If you believe in the regularity of nature, in order for it to be the regularity of nature, there's going to have to be something that is, from a worldview point of view, itself ultimately regular, that it is invariant in itself, that is imposing and sustaining the regularity. Because if you don't believe that, then there is no ultimate rhyme or reason for the successive similarities chronologically, and therefore it would be the illusion of the regularity of nature. Just like if I rolled those dice 20 times in a row and I got 7s every time, and then the casino manager takes out his little, gizmo and he measures the dice to see if they're true and fair, and he concludes that they're fair and there hasn't been any dice switching, and that the 27s in a row gave the illusion that the dice were fixed. So either the uniformity of nature is real or it's not real. If it's real, then something must be imposing it.
May I respond?
Yeah.
Okay. So the pit boss, for example, in your example, in your analogy, who is observing these 7s being rolled over and over again, that he has every right to be suspicious, right? He has every reason to think that somebody is obviously using loaded dice or some sort of mechanism to fix the game. But it is not impossible that all of those 7s happened on their own.
Okay.
It's highly unlikely, but it's not impossible.
Okay, so what is it then, in your view, that on a metaphysical scale, on a worldview level, what is it then that imposes what is, can be, and cannot be? And please don't say the cosmos. You want to talk about what's possible and impossible. You want to talk about reason and sense perception. That you're in a world that makes sense and is coherent to a certain degree as we investigate this world without reference to God as creator, and that things operate according from his mind. Okay? So I want to know, since you don't believe in God and the cosmos makes sense without it, when you make statements which require the presupposition of the uniformity of nature or the regularity of nature, okay, laws of nature, the causal principle, okay, I want to know what it is fundamentally that's not God that institutes and secures what is, can be, and cannot be for every event.
That has to be an assumption.
Okay. Do you know what that is, or do you have a belief as to what that is?
Yes, I have a belief that it is the cosmos, but that is a belief.
No, you're not. You're not understanding. Okay.
Okay. Please explain.
Let me rephrase the question to show you why that's not a coherent response. If I said to you,
okay,
what is it that is ultimate, right? That imposes what is, can be, and cannot be for each and every event for the set of all real things. And you say the cosmos. then all you're just simply saying is the set of all real things makes the set of all real things. That doesn't tell me, that's a non-informative response.
The set of all real things is itself an abstract, as you previously said, yes?
Yeah, it doesn't, you're not understanding. The set of all real things doesn't determine each and every event, unless you want to argue for that. How would you be able to do that? That the set of all real things, okay, what unifies, okay, when you say the cosmos or the universe, excuse me, these are tokens or abstractions that unify all of the discrete particulars. Now, is the cosmos or the universe, okay, you're referring to it as one thing. That one thing will either be a concrete one or an abstract one, where your mind imposes a unity on a set of particulars or a plurality of things. What actually, other than your mind, what imposes the unity upon the myriad of particulars?
Okay, I just, I'm doing my best not to interrupt you. So, pardon me if I wait a couple of seconds after you're done talking. I don't want to be impolite.
Sorry, you're doing fine. You're doing great. That's why we're getting along fine. Usually I deal with jerks. You're not a jerk, so we're doing fine.
Thank you. And I must say you're much more civil than other atheists say you are.
That's because most of them I deal with are jerks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get that. Okay, so to answer your question, which is very complex, and I have to say, you're asking it in ways that have made me think from your perspective, which is always helpful and a challenge. So I appreciate it. Once you are in your own thoughts and just justifying things to yourself, there's no challenge. You understand? So I would say the uniformity, if we're looking at it as the dichotomy of it's an illusion or it is concrete, I would have to plead ignorance or agnosticism on that point.
Okay. Well, then you can no longer claim that you recognize that the conceptual set cannot be invoked to stand in causal relations. Do you actually think that a single photon at the outer visible edge of the universe that has just been emitted from a star has any direct causal connections upon me scratching my nose? Because when you say the universe, you're saying every member of the set collectively determines each and every event collectively. How could you even possibly know that, let alone defend it?
It's too complex to understand.
You couldn't. So what you are asserting something is that, number one, it's not coherent. Number two, if it was coherent, you couldn't defend it to begin with.
Could you explain why it's not coherent?
Because what you're saying is that the set imposes each and every event of what it is, can be, or cannot be. But there is nothing unifying the set that does that. The set merely is conceptual in your head. Let me illustrate for you. Suppose we had 1,000 blue marbles, and that's all that existed in a thought experiment. Okay? 1,000 blue marbles. And I ask you, what is it that imposes what is, can be, or cannot be? And we could say, well, that one marble that is in the outermost left-hand corner, so to speak, that one over there, why is that marble what it is? And you say, well, because of all the marbles.
Okay, I understand better what you're asking again. See, I'm trying to see this from your perspective and why you're asking the questions that you're asking, and that brings me back to when I've asked myself these questions in the past, how I answered them. And I think the problem lies in that you are looking at all that exists as the example that you just gave of 1,000 marbles. All right. So you're conceptualizing the totality. And I am not. I don't conceptualize the totality. No, I don't.
Well, no, you told
I don't.
me. You told me the cosmos is all there is, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then I asked you, what is it that imposes and secures each and every event or any state of affairs in terms of what it is, can be or cannot be, and you made an appeal to the cosmos.
Yes.
But you see, that's not coherent.
I still don't understand why.
Okay. If I ask you, why is the blue marble that one, okay, why is it what it is? And you say, well, because of all the blue marbles. That's why that marble is that way, because of all the blue marbles. Is that coherent?
It depends. Okay.
Where did you get the idea
no.
that all of the other marbles, okay, when we conceptualize them in a set, that all of them together impose what one marble is at a given moment? Where'd you get that from? Because that's what you're saying when you appeal to the cosmos. See, this is a common response from atheists who don't know what else to say, because you're a monist. You just believe that the physical world, it just is. There's just stuff out there, and stuff is the way it is. You actually believe that the regularity of nature, you don't actually believe that the totality of everything determines what any particular is in a given time index or state of affairs. That's just a throwaway answer because you don't know what else to say. Because in fact, okay. Well, then how is it coherent to say? Okay, how is it to say that a conceptual set stands in causal relations?
Because causality is only part of the set.
No, you're not understanding. An abstraction doesn't stand in causal relations. If, for example, what if you said to me, Darth, what is it that imposes what is, can be, or cannot be? And I say the number 2. You would say, well, that's not really coherent. I'll say, why not? Say, because the number 2 is an abstract object or an abstraction. It doesn't stand in causal relations to any particular state of affairs. Okay? Now, I want to know, is there one thing that is grounding every entity and state of affairs that it is, can be, or cannot be? Or not?
Then I would say no.
Excellent. Now we've made progress.
No, there is.
Which you've now admitted to.
Can I just clarify?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're right. I'm not going to change that. I just want to clarify one little thing. Just one little thing. The extra aspect of this that would be setting those state of affairs, setting the causality. With my understanding of the cosmos, it is too complex to be able to say that it's not possible for the universe and the cosmos to have the relationship that you're talking about. And if that,
how do you know there's a relationship? How do you know there's a relationship between anything? What fundamentally and ultimately dictates any instance of possibility or impossibility? What is it? Of the set of all real things. If it's not God,
the conception of the dictation that you're talking about, I think, is an attempt for us to rationalize what happens. Right? We try to find patterns.
Okay.
I'm trying. I am trying.
If there's nothing singularly dictating, okay, what is, can be, or cannot be on a grand scale, right? Then what you have adopted now is what we call a chance ultimacy, as opposed to that there is something that is singular, ultimate, eternal, and that it is instituting and securing the world of regularity and allowing for some change over time, okay? If there is nothing identifiable or defensible that is imposing what is, can be, and cannot be, then you're in a world of what we call chance, okay? And by chance, I don't mean like some things are fixed, some things change, and then you can calculate the probability that that ping pong ball will come through the tube, okay? In a world of chance, there is nothing ultimately dictating what, if any, events take place, okay? Now, you have just conceded that in your not God belief, that you're in a chance world. Do you realize that?
I would reject the dichotomy.
Okay. Well, then your only alternative to the disjunction would be to identify and defend what it is that is singularly ultimate, that is not God, that is imposing what is possible and impossible. So what would that be?
I don't see why it's necessary for me to be able to provide an answer for that.
Well, you only have three options here. Either you are going to acknowledge that God is and that he's revealed himself through creation, or you will say no, that there is something else that is ultimate and eternal that institutes and secures what is, can be, and cannot be. And if you don't accept that, then what you're going to be left with is to say that there is nothing singularly and ultimately dictating everything that is, can be, and cannot be. So we have a trichotomy here, okay? Since you're not satisfied with the dichotomy or disjunction that I gave you, okay? You have a trichotomy before you. And there's not a fourth option.
Although you're right. I agree with you, and thank you for modifying that into a trichotomy. I do appreciate that, because you're working with me and you're actually trying to talk to me. I really do appreciate this.
And because I didn't think that you're going to go that there's something ultimate that's not God, that's eternal, because how would you ground that? That's why I left it out, and I proposed the dichotomy or disjunction, either God or chance.
Although I don't have another option to provide for your trichotomy, I would appeal to an unknown. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to the question you're asking.
So the point is, then what you are is that whatever events that you invoke, whatever particulars you invoke, there's no rhyme or reason why anything is, can be, or cannot be in your not God world.
Me not being able to name it doesn't mean it's not there.
Do you realize the position you just put yourself in there? You're saying that
yes,
what you've now violated your own atheist criterion of belief. I will believe in God if you can demonstrate. Remember, when we talk about God from a philosophical point of view, we are referring to God first and foremost as that which is ultimate and eternal. To be ultimate, okay, whether you consider it to be personal or impersonal, but for something to be ultimate, number one, it must be singular. Number two, that singular ultimacy must institute and secure, okay, what is, can be, or cannot be. Okay?
Okay.
Now, if somebody says, oh no, it could be two or more things. No, that would not be coherent, because you see,
I agree.
In order to be ultimate, I'm just going to explain this for the audience, and I'll be brief. In order for something to be ultimate, right, it not only must be absolute and invariant in and of itself and eternal, it itself must be the source and the basis of everything that is. In other words, to be ultimate, you must be independent from everything else, and everything else that is not the ultimate must depend and derive on the ultimate. That's why you cannot posit that there is a plurality of things that will be categorized as ultimate.
I agree.
Okay. So now, if you're going to say, you're going to reject that God is, by virtue that this world, all of the facts collectively, do not reveal or indicate God according to his plan, you reject that, then you're going to be left in a situation where you said that materialism and or naturalism makes more sense. Well,
yes.
How are you going to make sense out of any particular or state of affairs when there is nothing that is identifiable as to why anything is what it is?
So this brings us to the ultimate question of life. Why are things the way they are, right? That's what you're referring to?
It's worse than that. It's worse than that. You won't even be able to intelligibly invoke the statement, the sky is blue, or the apple is on the counter, because those statements themselves inherently include the presupposition of the regularity of nature, okay?
All right. Well, I would argue that experience predates cognition.
Okay, you're not understanding. You have nothing identifiable or defensible that is going to ground the actuality of the causal principle and the regularity of nature. You're going to need the regularity of nature. Let me illustrate it for you. Without the regularity of nature, you couldn't learn anything. Because when you learn things, you are expecting that certain things will be the same as they were in the past.
Yes.
Whilst other things might be different. So if the regularity of nature was not real, and it would only be real because it's imposed, because if it's not imposed, it's just happenstance. Without the regularity of nature, you couldn't learn anything. And there wouldn't be any rhyme or reason why anything is. Okay.
And yet it is. That's my point, is that
No, you're not a... Yeah, okay. I am not doing a good job here, okay? This is not your fault, right? It's not only that something is that what you claim it is, that it means anything at all. In order to have intelligibility for a fact, okay, or a particular, right, is going to require context, okay? You couldn't have an intelligible proposition that doesn't either have explicit or more usually implicit context. Predication, which is uttering statements or propositions that have a subject and an object, okay? There would be no subject-object relation between anything. When we predicate, we are invoking subject-object relations. I'm sure you agree with that, right?
I do, nominally.
Right. Now, so in your world, there are no defensible subject-object relations between anything.
There is no difference between anything. Everything is, as a monist,
no,
everything is the same.
Okay. When you say
ultimate.
You're a monist, are you the kind of monist where the totality is a concrete one? Or are you the kind of monist that the totality of everything is simply unconnected, unrelated particulars, and that the labels we give them are just simply human conventions? Which kind are you?
I would have to go with the latter.
Okay, well, here's the problem.
Provisionally, yes, I would say the latter.
Here's the problem, okay? Then you have no grounds to invoke and instantiate that there is actual unity among the particularity, okay? Because there's nothing imposing the unity in actuality. So in a world where we have a myriad, unimaginable number of particulars out there, there's no unity that has actually been imposed. There's nothing imposing it. So if you invoke, as a thought experiment all the time, I won't do it here, but if you go on to Google or Bing, just search for doppelgangers, okay? And in the regular servers, I will post an image of two young women who are doppelgangers. And when you look at them, they look like identical twins, right? Now, suppose one of those women got arrested for drunk driving, okay? And when she went before the judge, how do you plead? She says, innocent. And they say, okay, what's your defense? She says, well, my identical twin sister, we were separated at birth. And we recently became reunited, and she borrowed my pocketbook. And she was drunk. And, Your Honor, there you go. So I'm innocent. She's the one who's actually guilty. But you see, the judge knows ahead of time that they're of no relation whatsoever. Okay? So he says, no, I don't buy your defense. She goes, why not? Because you're not sisters. Okay? When she said, we're sisters, okay, that was fiction. Because there's nothing actually imposing the unity among the two persons. Okay? So either the unity is real and imposed, or the unity is simply an illusion. It's fiction. When you have the world around you, you want to believe that you're in a world that makes sense, that is intelligible, because there's unity and diversity. But in order for you to believe that, the unity has to be real and imposed, but you have nothing that you can appeal to that instantiates and sustains the unity among diversity. So is there anything that...
I don't.
Right. Therefore, your world makes no sense at all. You can't make sense of anything.
May I respond?
Yeah.
Okay. Having a presupposition in your premises is, I would argue, for anyone who's trying to make a justifiable position to explain to someone else. Anyone is going to end up with a presupposition, at least one.
Unfortunately, you can't make such a statement. Do you know why?
Why?
It's because that statement contains implicitly that there's unity among diversity. Does that statement that you just made require implicitly that there is some actual real unity among diversity?
When everything is happening conceptually, it helps us to have a meta understanding of everything.
I'm not hearing an answer to my question. Your prior statement, does it require for its intelligibility that there is some unity among diversity that is imposed?
As an assumption, yes, I can assume. Okay. I can assume that.
Is the unity real, or is it fiction? Because the intelligibility of what you just said requires that the unity be real as opposed to an illusion. Is the unity real?
Yes, I believe it is.
Good. What fundamentally and ultimately imposes any unity among the myriad of plurality of things?
I reject the plurality.
Okay, so then now you're switching to that you are a monist and you believe that the sum total of everything is a concrete one. Is that your position?
No. No, it's more discrete.
Okay, so then do you believe that there are two or more independent particulars?
No.
Is there only one particular that exists concretely?
As a set.
A set requires plurality. Is the totality of that which exists, is it a concrete one without there being actual plurality? Or is the totality of what is two or more independent particulars?
There is a third option, I would argue, than
No.
those two.
No. There isn't.
May I argue it?
Go ahead.
Infinity.
Do you know who David Hilbert is?
No, I do not.
David Hilbert was one of the greatest mathematicians of the 20th century. He wrote a paper called On Infinity, or Infinities. I can't remember which one it was. And in the paper, he says infinities are nowhere to be found. Okay? Infinity or infinities just serves as an idea within mathematics and set theory. Now, what I'm asking you is this, is the totality of what is there only one thing that is indivisible? Okay? Is there only one thing concretely? Or is what totally exists, is it two or more things?
I would say it is one thing that exists to the extent that it is indecipherable from an infinite thing. So when you say concrete, you think of a slab that's got edges.
Is it a concrete one?
A concrete that goes on for infinity, yes.
No. Infinity, you're not understanding, okay? Infinity doesn't mean anything, okay? It's just a concept, right? It doesn't. Can you show me an infinity?
There are infinite numbers between 1 and 2.
Okay, and how do you know that?
There's an infinite number of numbers.
And how do you know that?
It's a conceptualization of
you are confusing.
what is.
You are confusing a potential infinite with an actual infinite. Okay, do you know what a potential infinite is?
I don't think I am.
Okay, suppose.
And yes, I do know what a potential infinite is.
Okay, so if I suppose I was immortal, right, and I start counting 1, 2, 3, and I just keep on going and going and going. Okay, that would be a potential infinite. It's not an actual infinite. Now, the point is simply this. You're kind of sidestepping the question. Is the sum total just one concrete thing? Or are there two things that are concrete or more?
No, I would then say there's one thing.
Okay, you've now destroyed your ability to speak intelligibly. Because if all that is one concrete thing, then you do not have distinctions. Distinctions require particularity. If it's a concrete one, as opposed to an abstract one, okay, then you cannot make distinctions because there are no actual distinctions between particulars. There's only the one. This is
Good.
called the
now
one.
We're getting somewhere.
Have you ever heard of the one and the many problem in philosophy?
Yes, I have.
This is the problem that you're facing. So either what is in totality is a concrete one, or it's an abstract one which includes a plurality of concrete particulars. Which is it?
It is It's a concrete that is conceptualized to be abstract. But the abstract is illusory.
That's right. So therefore, when you are invoking any distinctions, they don't actually exist. They're fiction.
They are aspects of the one that are described.
No, they are fiction. Okay? They're fiction. So suppose the police come along and they see some guy and his head is cut off. They'll say, "What happened?" He says, "Well, I didn't do it." And they'll say, "Well, who did?" He said, Darth Sidious did it. Okay? Darth Maul did it. There is no Darth Maul. Darth Maul is just a fiction. Either the distinctions that you are going to invoke out of your mouth, either explicitly or implicitly, either distinctions are real or they're not. When you say, as an atheist, that your materialism makes more sense than God existing in him revealing himself through creation, we have perfect coherence and sense with God revealing himself through creation, that his creation reflects himself. But in your monism, your concrete one monism, there's nothing to be made sense of. You cannot make sense of saying the sky is blue, because in order to do that, you're making distinctions. But no such distinctions can be made in your monistic worldview, because there are no pluralities of anything. There are no actual real distinctions. So your materialism is not coherent. In an atheistic world, you could not even defend the assertion the sky is blue. In the Christian worldview, God has constructed this world. He's revealed himself through creation and through special revelation. And he's constructed a world so that we can know some things, that we cannot be wrong, and that we can have access to the intelligibility of some things. But when you reject that, your metaphysic implodes into nonsense. You told me that materialism makes better sense than theism, or I'll add Christian theism, but I just showed you that your materialistic worldview makes no sense at all.
No, I disagree.
How does your world make sense? How can you communicate to me about your world? Wouldn't you have to predicate in order to tell me how your world makes sense? The answer is yes, you would. But in order to predicate,
yes, there
has to be a subject-object relationship. How do you have a subject-object? No, you're not understanding. We're talking about a real subject-object relation. In a world where there's a concrete one, there is no subject-object relation.
It's conceptualized.
No, you're not understanding. Is there an actual subject-object relationship in a world where only one thing concretely exists? There's no subject-object relation. You see, that's why the Trinitarian view of existence, where we have one God, one being, one essence, who is three co-eternal persons. So we have unity and plurality. We have unity and diversity. But in your world, all you have is the one, a concrete one. There are no distinctions other than the one. So all that should just come out of your mouth is the one. All you can say is the one. Or you could call the one the Jablu-Blu, okay? Or if you want to call it the cosmos. But the moment you can't talk about the cosmos other than saying the cosmos. You can't say anything else, because that's going to require distinctions. There would be no subject-object relationship.
The subject-object relationship is itself conceptual.
No, you're not understanding. We're not talking about a thought. We're talking about that there is a subject-object relationship. In a subject-object relation, the subject is not the same thing as the object. Okay? Unless you're making an identity statement, like Superman is Clark Kent. But you see,
I'm making an identity statement.
Right, but you see, the identity statement, all you can do is invoke the one.
That's right.
Right, you can't say then the sky is blue.
The sky isn't actually blue. It's due to Rayleigh scattering. But
no. Listen to me carefully. Okay, you going to play that game?
No, I'm not. No.
Okay.
I promise.
The point is, predication is the ability to make statements that contain propositions. Okay? To predicate, it's to make a statement that has a subject and an object relation. In a world where there's only one thing, there's no subject-object relation. Okay? In the triune God of the Christian scripture, we don't have a God who is a monad, like in these other pagan religions. We have a God who actually solves the one and the many problem, because he's one God, but that he has within himself diversity and plurality. And there's a subject-object relation between each member of the Trinity, whereas one member of the Trinity is in a relational subject-object relation between another one who's in the subject-object relationship of the third, and it doesn't matter which one you start with. So we have perfect coherence in terms of subject-object relationships internally within the Godhead. But you don't believe that God exists and that he's revealed himself in creation. So what I'm trying to show to you, I'm not just trying to get you to abandon atheism. I'm trying to show you that your only alternative is Christian theism, exemplified in Jesus Christ. But before I can get you to seriously consider biblical Christianity, I have to show you the absolute incoherence of your position.
With all respect, and please do not take this as an insult or derogatory or me trying to defame you or anything like that. I believe that the assumptions that you hold and the ones that I hold are not going to allow for the sort of coherent discussion for us to be able to do this in a reasonable time frame. But that being said, the subject-object problem that you're talking about is going to give me a lot of food for thought.
Yeah.
How I understand monism
materialism, whether it is expressed in a concrete monism or a monism where there is just a plurality of things, either way, there's no intelligibility. Because
why is there no intelligibility?
Because I've already explained to you how there's no intelligibility for a concrete one. If you reject that and you opt for the kind of monism where there's just a plurality of particulars, there's nothing that concretely unifies the particulars. Each particular exists independent of the others.
Okay, so can we come back to the fictions that you were talking about before?
Which fiction? The fiction of the uniformity of nature, the fiction of distinctions, what?
Distinctions.
Okay. Yeah. Your world, your God of the Bible denying world has no basis to make distinctions.
Experience allows those distinctions.
Okay, that's okay. When you say experience, okay?
Yes.
You are appealing to. You're talking about your sense perception of cause and effect and the regularity of nature?
Within space-time, yes.
You haven't established that the regularity... Well, first of all, You can't talk about experiences in a world where there's only one thing. Experiences requires that there are discrete moments and events and distinctions. So you have cognitive dissonance. On the one hand, you want to believe that your world is a concrete one, but the things that you do invoke that are actual, such as experiences or causal succession or sense perception or the regularity of nature, these are all fictions. Because in a world where there's a concrete one, there is no particularity or relationship between the particulars. There's nothing that imposes it. So on the one hand, you're invoking the concrete one, but then you're invoking a state of affairs that is a contradiction to the concrete one. You can't have distinctions. You can't have distinctions.
The distinctions then are a system of navigation and are illusory, but once we linguistically create them as ideas, like baseball, for example.
You can't say we.
Baseball
you can't say we. Is we a plurality?
No.
So we is one?
This is okay. So we're
is
talking
we
about
a one or
the
a
use of language.
Do you mean I?
It's a one.
We refers to a plurality, sir.
I don't actually. Okay. So just let me explain then that identity itself, self-identity, is itself a fiction.
Okay. Then what you are giving to me is you are invoking fiction after fiction after fiction.
Yes.
Thank you. You've now demonstrated that your world is not coherent.
To your position, yes.
No, you told me that your world makes more sense, meaning it's intelligible and coherent. But your world is not coherent because in order to defend your world, you are invoking things that don't exist.
Abstracts do not exist. That's right.
Okay. No, we're talking about actual distinctions. Do distinctions actually exist?
As abstracts, which do not exist because they're linguistic constructs.
Do distinctions concretely exist?
No.
Then the distinctions aren't real then.
That's right.
Well, then all you're giving me are fictions to defend your worldview.
Every word, every idea is a fiction.
There we go. Game over. You've just committed philosophical suicide. You just gave up the game.
To your position.
You've literally, well, I don't say literally, you have figuratively bit down on the cyanide capsule, and there's no recourse, okay? You just admitted that any and every distinction that comes out of your mouth is a fiction.
Yes.
Good.
And I stand by that.
Yeah, but there won't be any I, and there won't be standing, because those are distinctions. The I is a fiction.
Distinction.
All you can say, listen to me carefully. If you say anything other than the one, okay, the concrete one, anything other than that will be a fiction. It doesn't.
That doesn't change that it's coherent.
You're not understanding. The only how shall I put this?
A coherent fiction is still useful.
Listen to me. If I said to you, dog, okay, that's going to require, for its intelligibility, certain principles like the uniformity of nature, okay? But
yes.
There is no uniformity of nature in your view. There are no distinctions. So there's not going to be predication. How are you going to communicate intelligibly when there is no predication? Because only in your world can you say the one. That's it. Whatever you want to call the one. You could call the one the Blue. You could call it the cosmos. It doesn't matter. It's a concrete one. But you don't actually believe that. You believe that there are actual distinctions.
Concrete at what level?
Okay. Concrete as opposed to an abstraction.
Right. Okay. So may I use an analogy?
Are there actual distinctions? I don't mean thoughts of distinctions, but actual concrete distinctions where there are two or more discrete things.
No.
Good. It's game over. Thank you for your time. You have now forfeited your ability to predicate. Because in order to predicate, you're going to have to invoke statements that have a subject-object relation. But there are no subject-object relations in your world. They don't exist.
They're conceptual. They're abstract.
You're not understanding. So wait a minute. So then if they're conceptual, then the only thing that can exist is a mind.
No, the mind is also.
You're not understanding. You can't have a concept without there being a mind.
You can.
No. That is, listen, I don't mean any disrespect to you, but that is ludicrous. Could there be
the
any...
The mind is itself
you're not understanding. Listen to me. Wow, this is really sad. Okay, were there concepts before there was any life on any planets?
No.
Okay. Well, then here's the problem. Then you believe that how shall I put this? You couldn't talk about before there were humans, okay? Because that would be or life, I should say, because that will require distinctions, okay? A concept is something that is held in the mind, but the mind is a distinction. Unless, of course...
The mind is still a concept.
Listen to me. Is this mind... Are you talking about a mind that is real?
No.
Okay. So then minds aren't real.
In the terms of
there are no actual minds in existence. Is that what you're telling me?
As things that are separate from people? No, there are not.
Are there actual minds that exist?
Okay. So we don't misunderstand each other.
I just need a clear answer. Are there minds that actually exist? Simple question.
Minds exist in the same way that baseball exists.
Baseball is a concept.
Right.
Okay? It's a concept, it's an abstraction that unifies certain individual events that are combined together in a mind. Okay? All I want to know is this. Okay? All I want to know is this. Are there actual minds that concretely exist?
No.
Okay, we're done then. It's game over.
Why?
Because I'm not talking to a mind right now. Okay? This
but
is
you believe you are.
Listen, doesn't matter what I believe. Okay? I don't hold to your worldview. What you don't realize, you have absolutely committed philosophical suicide. The conversation's over. Okay, I don't mean to be
considering.
Here's why. Listen to me, because right now, I'm not even talking to an answering machine. I'm not even talking to a machine that is making sounds, because there are no distinctions. Your position is there are no minds. Therefore, right now, you are not reasoning. Okay? There are no minds. There are no distinctions. We're done. Vicarious. We're done. You are.
As a Christian, I deserve no respect. Then.
You are. Okay. You are in complete denial right now. You have too stated many there are no distinctions. There are no distinctions, and there are no minds. Okay, what am I hearing? If there are no minds, what am I hearing? What are the sounds that I'm hearing? Am I being. Okay? No, but you see, no. According to you.
If I'm wrong, what does it matter then? Aren't you still talking to a human being that could become a Christian?
Listen, there is no right or wrong in your worldview. Right and wrong doesn't exist. All there is the one.
And if you're trying to explain to me that I'm wrong,
we're done.
Then you're treating me with no respect.
No, I am.
As a human being,
you with complete disrespect. I'm simply saying to you is, we have reached an end to the dialogue because you are in complete denial. Listen. You are in complete denial that you have reached the point of utter metaphysical implosion to your God denialism. And you know it, I know it, and the listening audience knows that it's over. This is worse than the Hindenburg, what you have conceded to. We're done.
Based on your unjustified assumptions, you're probably
there is
right.
No such thing. There is no. Listen, you understand? In your world, there cannot be distinctions. So when you say in your unjustified, whatever distinctions you come out of your mouth, they don't exist.
Neither does God.
We're done. You haven't demonstrated that. Okay? I asked you from the beginning.
From which I could demonstrate it to you.
Listen to me. Nothing can be demonstrated in your world, because in order to demonstrate
nothing can be justified in yours.
Listen to me.
I think I'm done.
Hold on a second. I've been showing you this whole conversation, the absolute bankruptcy and incoherence of your monism or your materialism. You so far have not established, that God does not exist. All you did. Okay, go ahead. Yeah. All you've simply done is you've made one contradictory claim after another, and we're done. Oh, he's gone. Okay.
Yeah, he left. What is it? You definitely. I think twice actually. Showed him an inconsistency in his worldview there, so that was
he was utterly
really interesting.
He was utterly and completely irrational at the end. Okay.
Yeah, after you showed him the inconsistency in his worldview, then he got a bit crazy at the end there. I mean, he said this is. Oh, sorry. He said you make too many assumptions at the base of your worldview, and then literally within the sentence said, he says there's no minds and there's no concrete distinctions.
Yeah, there are no minds,
which is pretty funny.
See, this is the level of psychosis that some of these atheists voluntarily choose. All right. Now we have to listen. We have to give. What was his name again? Was it Mathew or Michael Steele? I think it was maybe Mathew Steele.
Yeah.
We have to say that he conducted himself impeccably. Okay. I have no
reasonably
problem.
Well behaved.
Yeah, compared to the atheists that we deal with, right? So there wasn't any need or even desire on my part to get angry with him, because he was acting like an adult. Okay?
Yeah.
I can just use...
No, he was definitely...
Yeah. I can just use...
So he was...
True. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, he was definitely really reasonable, and a lot more reasonable than the average atheist that we get hold of. I mean, if you just want to break that point down, and then we'll bring somebody else on if you don't mind.
Yeah. So notice that he never got around to defending that whatever he believed to be the one was the case. He just asserted that it was. Okay? Now, how would you be able to defend that the one is the only thing that exists and that it's not God? You would have to predicate in order to do that. But his world cannot provide for predication, meaning invoking statements that have an object-subject relation. So he never did show us that there is no God. Right? So although his behavior was very good as an adult, it was a complete disaster in defending his monistic materialism. It was a disaster of epic proportions.